Football. Graham Hunter is with us to try and restore a modicum of sanity to the show this morning. Graham, good morning to you. How you doing?
Grand. I have a small piece of advice for Owen now. Owen, is this the power rankings? Why don't you take the same approach to the power rankings as you did to the draft?
It's got a good chat.
You could have a set to Ali Foreman, like I've just been listening to with Ger. A couple of scoops. It always helps. That's all I'm saying.
How do you know I haven't already?
Did I? Well, there's a difference between this and the draft. And also, did I hear Kerry described as the third best team in the world?
Yeah, third best team in the world. Name me three better teams in the world at Gaelic football than Kerry, Graham.
It's magic. It's when they win the Super Bowl and the world champions. I just love the adopted attitude. Lovely. It's been really educational. Come on, and to one.
That's Ari, we're over there. Right, Graham, we wanted to talk to you about Neymar and Griezmann and what's going on, and then Newcastle helpfully intervened and gave us Rafa Benitez to talk about as well. Is there a chance that Rafa Benitez just goes back to Spain at this point and says, okay, I've had enough of the Premier League? Because I don't know, there's no available job at the moment, but he's certainly one of the best managers operating in English football, and here he is being shown the door by an idiot owner.
I'd really like that to be the case. My respect for him is high. I meet him and speak to him relatively regularly. I've done one-on-one interviews with him. But the thing that's influenced me most of all, rather than knowing him or listening to him, is whenever you speak to his footballers, and there's living, breathing evidence now at St James's Park, every single one of them, whether they like him, don't like him, respect him or not, they'll admit that he bettered them, he taught them. He is one of the most idiosyncratic managers going around, coaches going around. I've found that a lot of the love that's generated for him from footballers is often retrospective when it sinks into them. How much he changed them, how much he taught them, the fact that they felt either picked on or bullied or micromanaged. All of that they thought retrospectively was a good thing. Now, if you take that micro into the macro and you look at Newcastle, I think everybody listening to you've got a well-educated listenership and viewers at the moment in the morning. They would know that he's punched well above his weight. The sponsors I work with in my podcast asked me at the end of the season in a sort of group broadcast that we had to name a Premier League manager of the season. I felt I had to go to Rafa. There is no question that the biggest achiever, the most outstanding manager, is Pep Guardiola, and he's got that by a hair's breadth from Klopp. But pound for pound, Rafa's achievement at Newcastle, not only given the resources, but given the frustration, given the way that given the way that they're managed by the owner. The people at Newcastle, and I've been there to the training ground pretty regularly over Mike Ashley's reign, say that for all his flaws that you picked on him as an idiot owner, he'll give you a certain amount of money, and then he'll give you leeway. He'll give you room to manage. He's not a particularly interventionist owner in terms of putting a spoke in the wheels and screwing things up all the time. Where Rafa has found him difficult is that Rafa will continuously be plotting and resculpting the shape of the club, the shape of the responsibilities, the ability to move quicker than Lee Charnley allows him to do in the transfer market. There lies the number one frustration. But to come to your point about where he's going to go, one, he was playing a game with them, which I think he held the cards, and I don't think it was a false game, that there is an offer for him in China, which I think probably he's going to take rather than go to La Liga. He let Newcastle know about it. He said to them, they're offering me more or less double what you are, in a bid, because his preference was to stay at Newcastle, see Ashley out, and to be in charge of a Newcastle team with new owners. And there are, if I'm not mistaken, at least 3 bids, one on the table and 2 hovering around. And Benitez's ideal was to be at Newcastle in order to carve himself out another shot at a still bigger club in the Premier League in the coming 2-3 years. And that dream's now been taken away from him. I genuinely believe he didn't know this statement was coming out yesterday, Ger. I think he suspected that the negotiations were going to end badly, but the fact that he wasn't told about it before the public was told about it, again, reflects bad on those who run the club.
Oh, for sure.
It's an interesting one now, kind of what Rafa does next, what Newcastle does next. Like on the back pages this morning, we're seeing Jose Mourinho's name linked with Newcastle United. And for any manager who is looking to improve how the world sees them, improve their own prospects, and in terms of actually trying to climb that ladder again, surely Newcastle United is the last place you want to go.
If you look at Mourinho's, I think pretty reprehensible actions that have badly smudged his reputation in both Chelsea and Manchester, it was very often the things that he did handled worst that have damaged his reputation has been one, his distemper about how the club manages his transfer market wishes. If you ask those who run Chelsea today about the manner in which he handled his desperate need for Cuadrado, that Cuadrado was the one missing jigsaw piece at Chelsea, the transfer limits that had been agreed needed to be ripped up. This was vital. And a few weeks later, once he bent Chelsea to his will, and Cuadrado was in the doghouse and not on the bench, and he was asked by those who run the club, what about... Oh, it was a mistake. Sorry, it was a mistake. And at Manchester United, he harangued everybody that would listen about the transfer market dealings and policy and speed and ability to recognise value and to put money against need. Well, that's Newcastle, exactly as you say. All those things that have driven Mourinho absolutely mad at Chelsea and Manchester United would be quintupled at Newcastle until there are new owners there with a massive budget and a massive salary for him, given that he'd be expecting to earn double what Benitez was earning. There is no chance of Jose Mourinho taking over.
Yeah, fair enough. So is that the end of Rafa? Is there nobody in England who might be able to convince Rafa, there's enough people here for you to have that chip on your shoulder? And
I think it's more of a little microchip in his brain, Ger. I think if we look back over almost every time that Rafa Benitez has said that he's in the huff, particularly about reassurances or money, I felt that things ran away from him a little bit in the last year at Liverpool. His wish for absolute and total control contrasts with where the club is at now, where there's a bipartisan agreement between those who run the club and the man who coaches the club. But that aside, that last year aside, I think that Rafa Benitez's times when he said, I'm not happy and I need this and this isn't happening, usually he's been right. He's been driven by the correct motives. And I think that history has repeatedly judged him well. So I hope that for those who love the Premier League, I hope you're right that there is. I don't quite see the available option right this instant. And when you sign into Rafa's creed, you need to know your fan base well, because you are going to get pragmatic football. And at the moment, I don't see that the option is quite ready for him in La Liga either. And the salary that he's about to command in China can't be matched by anybody who would want him in La Liga. So the end of the Premier League, I would bet not. He's very emotionally attached to England. And one of the things you talked about, chip in the shoulder, and I compared it to a microchip in his head, he's driven by people who have pushed him down and said, you're not it, you're not good enough, whatever. And he's driven by the need to prove them wrong. And therefore, he will be leaving the Premier League with, this is not goodbye, this is see you later.
Yeah, fair enough. And in fact, there are actually probably a few clubs in the next 18 months who might have it, like Spurs, Everton. Are these clubs? Could he go to Everton? I'm not sure.
My bet is no, he wouldn't coach at Everton. And Spurs demand a brand of football. I mean, Rafa Benitez is the hard-boiled version of Pochettino, and I'd be a little bit surprised, given the trajectory of Tottenham Hotspur, that's where he would end at.
Arsenal?
Yeah, if you ask me about Arsenal and the way things are going, they could do worse. If Emery moves on in frustration, Emery's a wonderful coach, and Emery will get things as right as it's possible to get with their ownership, with the what is wrong there. They're adrift, is what they are. It's a bit Marie Celeste at the moment, and Emery will get that as right as he possibly can. But unless the club heaves to and backs him properly, both in the market and the efficiency and the sleekness with which the day-to-day business is run, then at some stage I could understand that being attractive to Arsenal, yes.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Neymar Griezmann situation, because apparently Barcelona are interested in taking Neymar back, and I don't really understand how this makes that much sense. If you've got a chance to get Griezmann, why would you be adding Neymar back into that mix too?
First of all, I understand that the deal between Barcelona and Griezmann was agreed in principle, written and signed in principle over in, let me call it one of the financial paradises, in about March. And that the agreement was that come July 1 that they would pay the diminished buyout clause of 120 million euros. That comes down from just over 200 million euros. Why accountancy in current Spanish thinking means that buyout clauses pretty consistently now drop after July 1. Probably it's just power to the agents who say, yeah, we'll sign on, but we want not only a get out, which was over 200 million, but we want a reduced get out in case we're not happy after this first year. It seems to me to be, if I were an Atleti fan, I'd be pretty angry at the way that Atleti have negotiated that clause. However, Barcelona were completely committed to buying Griezmann on July 1st. They knew the price, they knew the wages. It was a done deal because you don't have to negotiate with a buyout clause. It's not a transfer. You deposit the money with La Liga's offices, and Atleti, or whichever the club that's losing a star, has no word in it. And then what happens here, and this is why Owen and you and I have the good sense not to preside over one of the world's behemoth football clubs, your superstar, Leo Messi, says, I want Neymar back. And when you're the president of a club that still desperately needs Messi, and has come nowhere near the point of saying, I wonder when Messi becomes a diminishing asset, because right now he patently is not. His season has been extraordinary. And even those who point to Barcelona being humiliated at Anfield, Messi was awesomely great that night and nearly carried another 10 men on his shoulders. He has had a brilliant year, a brilliant season. Therefore, Messi is not right now viewed as a declining asset. And Bartomeu has said that before his mandate goes out in summer 21, one of his last legacies will be to renew Messi yet again. And therefore, all the power is apparently in the hands of the club's playing leader, Messi, who said to Bartomeu, bring Neymar back. That's my petition. Bring him back.
What is it about Neymar that makes him so attractive as a teammate to Lionel Messi?
Oh, and I think it's there's at least two layers to it. The first layer is that Neymar's movement, ability on the ball, and previously his willingness to play left, not centrally, meant acres more space for Messi, took markers off Messi, gave him brilliant passing options. And, you know, maybe when I was a football fan rather than somebody who chronicles football, maybe I saw it and didn't quite analyse it to this extent. But I remember the first time I really saw two giants looking at each other going, oh, well, this is fun, we can play together, was when Edgar Davids came to Football Club Barcelona and revitalised the club midway through that first season of Frank Rijkaard. And Ronaldinho was looking okay until that point. And I thought Davids was an enforcer, a cleaner up of business, a Winston Wolf in midfield. And instead what I found, because I hadn't been watching him live at his clubs previous to that Davids and Ronaldinho just looked for each other every possible instant, and everybody around them woke up as these two played their own little symphonies. It was brilliant to watch. Transformed Barcelona, they went on a 17 straight win run and very nearly came from middle of the table to win the title. Neymar and Messi are the same. They're on the same wavelength, and it's a wavelength of it's not FM or AM, it's brilliance. And therefore, in football terms, you can understand, because it's not Messi's money that needs to be outlaid, you can understand why he wants him. And secondly, the hard fact is, as distinct as they seem as professionals, Messi has been ultra assiduous, ultra focused, and Neymar hasn't. They are really close friends. And although I had my doubts at certain stages about Suarez and Neymar's friendship, there were spark points on and off the pitch. The three of them have remained in a WhatsApp group, have remained really tight, and Messi and Suarez are umbilically tight, as are the families. I've rarely seen anything like it off the pitch. They almost wear the same clothes. And to add Neymar to that is something that patently Suarez sees as getting extra juice out of probably his last year at Football Club Barcelona, in my opinion. again, in my opinion, likely before he joins David Beckham's Miami project. And Messi is looking at the Champions League, and he sees Neymar as a key figure in making them able to kill teams off the way that Dembele, if you remember, in the first leg didn't when Liverpool were 3-0 down, undeservedly, and Dembele missed a sitter that might well have made the difference for the second leg.
So where does Griezmann fit in?
Yeah, I don't see that he does. There are Catalan newspaper rumours that they'll try to take both of them. One, people were already saying, where's the fit for Griezmann? I saw it, others didn't, when it was simply Messi and Suarez he was joining. Secondly, Barcelona are relatively open on their finances, and although they earn a lot of money, they spend a huge amount on salaries. And what's important to note is that they were scheduled to start the remodelling of the Camp Nou, €600 million project 3 years ago now, or it will be 3 years ago in August. And they haven't been able to do so because of money. Now, that is deeply embarrassing. It's a legacy project for the president. It's now not going to be done by the time he leaves the club. And I'll say it again, Barcelona cannot complete a project, can't even begin a project that they were threatening to start nearly 3 years ago now because of lack of cash. So to spend what it will take to bring Neymar and Griezmann seems to me utterly impossible.
Okay, well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And if you were to predict one of them arriving, can they get out of the deal that they did in whatever tax haven?
Yeah, because it's club to player. They haven't paid the buyout clause. The contract will say, subject to paying the buyout clause, we will pay you this right. money. If they don't pay the buyout clause, I suspect that they're going to be able to sort that out. And you'd imagine that if Neymar were to leave Paris Saint-Germain, then Paris Saint-Germain buying a World Cup winning Frenchman for less money than they get rid of Neymar for, and taking Coutinho into the bargain, might well suit PSG quite well.
Okay, so there's plenty of work to be done, plenty of pieces to fall on that one. Last question for you here. Is Pogba going to be a Real Madrid player?
I don't think so. To say no would be stupid because he is an explicit petition of Zinedine Zidane. And if you held a poll right now of your viewers, they'd say, well, Zidane knows better than Graham. I'd argue that case. I think Pogba is the wrong guy for this current Real Madrid setup. His ability is not in question, but his ability and his willingness to chase and to press and to cover and do responsible defensive work probably isn't proven. I think that the Real Madrid's midfield right now is a little bit slovenly, a little bit slow. It's been where many teams have pierced them time and time again over the last La Liga campaign. And therefore, I think there's a high risk. You can understand, I can understand it. I can understand the fact that Zidane says, I will get the best out of him. I will get commitment out of him. I will drive him onwards with the prospect of winning the Champions League that he lost with Juventus in the final. All of these things Zidane is perfectly entitled to believe. And were he to restructure the midfield, which he's not doing, around Pogba, and Pogba were your extra player, your player that gives you that push forward, the passing, the scoring, the connection with the front, maybe. I don't think that's what's happening around the Pogba idea at Real Madrid. Juventus are desperately keen to sign him. He knows the territory there. He knows that he'll be pretty much king of the club. Ronaldo accepted at Juventus. So I see Juventus having a slight edge at the moment. But the Zidane factor could prove me wrong, could take him back to Madrid. You asked me where I see him. On balance, I see him at Juventus. And I guess if you're Paul Pogba and very, very questioned in England and a little bit tired of the chaos at Old Trafford, it's nice to be competed for by Juve and Real Madrid, no?
Yeah, it's not a bad situation to find yourself in. Graham, great stuff. Thanks a million.
Adios.
That's Graham Hunter with us this morning, giving us some insight into what's going on at Barcelona. I had no idea that Messi loved Neymar quite so much.
The little South American WhatsApp group. I presume it's just the three of them, the WhatsApp group. MSN. I always kind of almost vomit at the idea of those names that are abbreviated to give the first initial of each name. Like, okay, Sutton and Shearer was okay, SAS was fine. And I guess, like MSN, I hate it. MSN is without question the worst abbreviation in the history of football. So if they can just get rid of Suarez and get Neymar back, that might be better for all involved.